Welcome to another episode of Help Nobody Told Me. I am Jasmine Shapiro with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and my partner Shannon Johnson.
Hello.
And we're both realtors and we are excited.
We're really excited because our favorite inspectors are here with us today, Dunsing Inspection. So we have Jamie Dunsing, who is their owner-operator, second generation. You've been at this how many years?
This is my 35th year.
Okay,
Wow.
so he knows a little bit.
Done this a couple of times.
Yeah.
And Kristin Marsden is his communications director. So we see you all the time at networking events and things like that. So we probably know you better than Jamie now.
Yeah. We're excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for joining us today.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Second generation, so your father was an inspector, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I love this story. My mother started our business.
Really?
So yeah, we've been in business for 44 years.
I love that.
My dad was a contractor. My mother, he was very slow in business in 1980. My mother said, we got to do something, and she started doing home inspections. I came in 1989, the same year I got married, and started doing home inspections for my parents. So I think I was their fourth or fifth employee. So,
Wow.
Yeah, long time.
So women power, right? She was
Yes.
astute enough to say, I've got 2 kids in college. We need a different plan. So she started it. And the first year, there were 2 inspections, and she kept it on a paper. We still have the paper
We still
log.
have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, first of all, I love that she was a pioneer,
Yep.
right? And started a female-owned company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. How has it changed from 40 years ago to today? Like, it must be so different
So
today.
different, yeah. Probably the biggest change is technology. I remember, I talk about this a lot. We do a lot of digital photography, video with our inspections now. Way back when we were using, way back when we weren't using any photography at all. Then we graduated at one point to Polaroids, if you remember those.
Yeah.
And Polaroids we used to kind of limit because they were expensive. Back in 1990, they were $1 a shot. So, right now we probably include anywhere from 30 to 50 photos in our inspection reports. Back then, $30 to $50 times 2, because you had to provide the client with photos,
Right.
and we needed to retain a copy. So, digital photography has changed a lot, and just the idea that now some of the tools we use, drone photography, some of the different tools we use at inspections, absolutely have blown my socks off the amount of information we gather for people.
And how quickly you get it to the client
Yes.
and us.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine back then it probably took at least a few days,
Yeah.
or if not a week,
Back then, we had a typist.
right?
And we used to go, the inspectors would use a voice recorder, and we would get those in those micro cassettes, about that big. They would get them in, and our typist would sit with a headset on and type, and then the inspector had to proofread everything. We graduated, we were in the big time when we got triplicate forms, where everything was on those NCR forms,
Right.
and then we would hand those out at the inspection.
And then you probably had to mail it to
A
people.
lot of times we mailed it. We would have things delivered.
Okay.
I can remember at one point my brother, who has nothing to do with the business, would deliver things for my parents. It was a hot mess back then.
Wow.
Yeah,
Technology.
technology's good.
So when people start talking about inspections and they're buying a home, maybe a first-time buyer, they start getting nervous.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal. This is a make or break thing. Okay, I found this house I'm in love with, but I haven't done the inspection yet. And Jasmine and I always say, we don't get excited till we get through inspection. That's great, we have an offer on a house, but let's get through inspection before we, pop open a bottle of wine or anything,
yeah.
because we got to get through that. So let's start with buyers first of all. How should they prepare for a home inspection? Like, what do they need to know going in before it ever begins?
We are huge. Kristin is our communications director and marketing, but communications, we are huge on communications. Setting expectations is so important. So making sure a home buyer needs to make sure what their goal is at the end. I heard this saying a number of years ago: the home inspection is a shield, not a sword. I think too many people come into this process thinking, I cut a deal, I'm going to get a home inspection and I'm going to cut a better deal. That is like their goal, and use the $1,000 home inspection to get $20,000 off the price of the house. So setting those expectations on the front end is important. Letting people know there's no perfect house, whether it's an experienced homeowner, home buyer, or a new home buyer. Even if it's new construction,
right.
It's not perfect. So that's huge, is setting expectations.
Setting expectations, simply no home is perfect. When our schedulers take the call, they will ask, what are your primary concerns about this? When our inspectors contact the client prior to the inspection, at the inspection, they're going to say, what are your primary concerns? And that's what we're going to try to highlight. So they get asked at least 3 times so that we are giving them the information that they need. But ultimately, there's something wrong with every house.
Right. And for our buyers, we always say to them, we're looking for health and safety.
Yeah.
When it comes to what we may ask for in concessions, we're looking for health and safety issues. So there's paint peeling on the door, unless it's an FHA thing that we have to fix. We're not worrying about a loose screw, a hinge, a leaky washer on a sink. Those are nice things to know, but that's not what we're asking for.
Yeah, most of what you get out of an inspection are maintenance items, right? Prioritize. A non-functioning HVAC system is a major issue.
Right.
A non-functioning dishwasher is not a major issue.
Right.
I go back
Perspective.
I go back to a story. This is probably 20 years ago. I was doing an inspection on probably about a $750,000 house. So 20 years ago, that's quite a house.
Yeah.
The home buyer was asking me to write down cracked toilet seats, which I do. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we'll do. But I said to her, what is your motivation on this in so many ways? She said, well, we're going to try to get $25 off on the price of the house. And I said, we're talking about a $25 item on a $750,000
Right.
home. She said, well, that's our goal. I take some blame on that. I did not set her expectations on the front end that we're looking for major things. And I'll blame the
And you
agent. I
learned.
don't even remember the person or the agent, but the agent should have
Yes.
set their expectations
Yes.
as well.
Right.
So,
Really
and then you started talking about, okay, so a lot of times we give buyers a couple of companies because we don't want to steer them, right? But we always say our preferred inspector is Dunsing Inspections, but here are 3 names. They then go ahead and call you and schedule it. It's not us, it's the buyer, because they're paying for it, right? And oftentimes, your scheduler will ask them, you have a myriad of services you can provide, and their heads are just like spinning. And then they call us and they're like, well, what do we need to book? So can you maybe highlight that? Because I think that would be helpful for us too, as well as listeners.
Sure. I'll just jump in. I mean, clearly, home inspections are
Yes.
our bread and butter. So you need a home
Yes.
inspection to look at the overall house. But if I were purchasing a house, there's absolutely no doubt I would have a sewer survey done, get a camera of the survey.
That's really common now.
Very common.
And if
yeah.
you haven't bought or sold a house in 20 years, you may not know this, but this is
Right.
like, it's very common now.
Yep. That would be one. If health and safety is one of your important things, you might want to have some different environmental testing done. Radon testing would be one of them. We don't do lead testing, but lead testing might be something. Some people have people come in and look for asbestos. Mold testing is big. We do mold testing and mold investigations for people, whether it's a purchase or an existing home. But if you're concerned about environmental things, there are at least 4 different items that you might want to consider in there. The other services, chimney, we do. I'll let you explain a little bit about that, and thermal
I
imaging.
don't think you mentioned radon.
I did say
You did.
radon.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Radon.
Yep, chimney.
Chimney, thermal imaging. How come I can't think of them right now?
No, we've hit it.
That's it.
I was going to say
Yeah.
chimney would be another important thing.
Yes.
That's a life safety thing. There are chimney contractors out all over Chicagoland. This time of the year, they're trying to push people hard to get chimneys cleaned. Part of the deal is they also want to have them inspected. And unfortunately, some of them use scare tactics with people. They'll come out and say, you need $15,000 worth of chimney repairs. Some of it's legit, but we can tell them basically the same information and tell them if this is legitimately a repair they need to do. So your original question, I think, was what other services? Sewer would be absolutely one, chimney, radon. Those are the
Those are the
mold.
big three.
Those are the big
Okay.
ones.
Big three, yes.
Yep.
And it's nice that Dunsing offers all of that, because some companies might just do a home inspection, but then you need to contract somebody else out to do radon, chimney, all of the other things.
Yep.
And that can get kind of messy when you have 5 to 10 days to get your inspection done after an offer has been submitted. So it's wonderful that you guys provide all of that.
We worked pretty hard to try to be a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
We're even reaching out now to other home inspection companies. We've started a separate name. It's our core business, but we've started a separate business where we can help other home inspectors, whether it's doing any of those different ancillary services, but also if they're going to be inspecting a 6,000 square foot home by themselves, we can send an extra person to speed things along.
Right.
You've all been at marathon
Right.
home inspections where you're there for 5, 6, 7 hours.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Big eye roll.
Right.
We
Yes.
can help move those things along. So to any other home inspectors watching this, give us a call. We'll be happy to talk about it with you.
And it's important to note that's a white label service, white label company. We come in, we are not Dunsing Inspections, we are hired by the other inspector. So what we're trying to do is offer, because many of the inspection companies are just one-person operations.
Right.
We want to help them offer more services to their clients and agents without the investment of time and equipment.
Absolutely. That's a huge help.
And I didn't know you guys did that, so
I had
that's
no
something I
idea.
just learned.
So you get the inspection, and it's you can't see me if you're listening, but
It's like a book.
Thick.
It's thick. It's a lot of pages, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
We love your inspection report, and our clients love it because you use your little red, yellow, green lights. And so tell us a little bit about how you communicate that so that buyer understands what's important on that inspection report.
Yeah, we discovered a long time ago that just handing people a report that has everything in it, it was overwhelming, like you're saying. So we've tried to break things down to what are safety and major concerns. That's our main goal. Items that are not working are going to be in our summary, and then things that need follow-up, due diligence, we call it, further investigation. You might need to have a plumber come in, you might need to have a roofer come in, electrician, whatever it might be. Those are kind of the main things we concentrate on. And
Those
then-
are your reds. Those are your
that's
top level.
Yeah, those are red, I think blue, and it's interesting, I'm colorblind.
Something.
So to me, that it's basically dark gray, medium gray, and light gray. If I think
My husband's the same
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Sometimes he comes up with outfit ideas. I'm like,
Yes.
no, honey.
so. Yeah, we try to color code those so that it draws their attention to
Right.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges, though, that comes with it is they don't read beyond those.
Yeah.
So, interesting, not an uncommon phone call. Had someone call and say that her electricity went out. She had to call an electrician in. They'd only been in the condo 2 months, and they were very upset. When I looked at the report, it wasn't even further down. It was in the top major, attention, read this, you need an electrician, this is not working right. And I was empathetic, what could I
Right.
say to her?
Right.
It's interesting how much people do not read even the summary. We've written a lot of blogs about it, a lot of social media posts about you gotta read past the summary. Because what's important to you may not be the same thing important. Like you may care about mold, maybe I don't care about mold. It's so where it is in the report is a judgment call.
I'm going to speak to the camera here for those that are watching. I'll speak for every home inspector in the world. Read your home inspection report front to back.
But don't get terrified. And I think this is where we as brokers kind of work in tandem with you.
Yep.
We attend the inspection with our buyer. We set their expectations. So like Shannon said, we're looking for health and safety issues, but you're paying for this. Walk around with the inspector. A lot of times, maybe not while he's doing things, but at the end, they will take you and they will show you this is what is of concern. This might be like, oh, these pipes are not exactly lined up. Not horrible, but something you might want to look into, like you said.
I'll add
Yeah.
one thing to that. Don't be afraid to call your inspector afterwards. If there are
Okay.
questions, people get nervous calling us. we'll help you a day, a week, a month, 10 years. I still have people calling me 10 years after inspections. I guess I have done some inspections for grandkids at this point, but we've had people call us many years after an inspection. Can you help us out with something? So
That's super important. Any inspection your client is choosing should be accessible post-inspection.
yeah,
And if they're not, you got to ask why they aren't. And we enjoy working with agents like you guys because you understand that. And you're willing to call us and say, hey, the client's having trouble with this. Can you, if the client doesn't want to make the phone call, our inspectors aren't available for post-inspection conversation.
And one of the other things that most of your inspectors do is, they're at the end when they're walking through and giving all the points, they say, by the way, this is how this furnace works, and this is when this needs to be done,
Here's
X,
where
Y,
the filter
Z.
goes.
Because first-time homeowners, they've been renting their whole lives. They don't change filters.
Right.
You don't know these things. So you get a little bit of education. It's so important for them to be there in person.
And I've been on inspections where they'll ask your inspector, okay, so who do I call for a plumber? And oftentimes the inspector says, well, you can call our office and we have some names that we're really not supposed to be.
Right.
Or how much, more so, how much would it cost me if I need.
Mm-hmm.
And
Every
the
inspection.
inspector's like, it's not fair for them to quote because they're not doing the labor.
right.
Right?
You don't like it when people quote your fees. We don't like it when people quote our fees. Plumbers, electricians, roofers don't like it when we.
Right.
And tradespeople will find other problems that we may not have found. I think that our job as a home inspector is akin to going to your primary care physician. He or she is going to look you over, listen to your heart. If they hear something going on, they're going to send you to a cardiologist, for instance, and say, you need to have this looked into a little further. Kind of the same thing.
Okay.
The cardiologist is going to maybe find nothing, going to maybe find bigger problems. Same thing, plumbers, electricians, those kind of.
So while we're on the subject, though, that need for a plumber, electrician, whatever, people don't understand that we are detecting problems that need to be further diagnosed by an expert. Our experience, our knowledge is general. That's another expectation that clients should understand is you're going to have to follow up.
Right.
And regarding that list, we do have a list of vendors. These are people we have just accrued a level of trust with. We don't have any relationship with them. When someone asks me for a plumber, it's the plumber that does all the work at my house, and they're fantastic.
Right.
We have no affiliation with those companies.
Right, and that's what your inspectors have often said to clients. If you call the office, they can give you
Right.
some names and numbers.
Yep.
Right.
So-
And we're the same way. We have a list of vendors.
Yep.
We don't have any affiliation. We don't,
You just gotta have a guy.
Yeah.
You gotta have a guy.
Got a guy.
But that's our team. We work with people who we trust, who we would
Right.
use. I mean, you guys did my son's home inspection, I wouldn't suggest somebody I didn't trust to my own family.
Right.
And that's, painters and plumbers and electricians and all of that. That's our team. We call it our team. And I think that's important that
Yep.
you're suggesting people that are good.
Yeah.
That you know, like, and trust.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face as an inspector? How do you overcome them?
We get the same questions. We talked a little bit about costs at inspections. People ask us every inspection, what's that going to cost? We also get questions like, what's the code on that? Is that going to be code? Home inspectors aren't doing code inspections. What it really comes back to is communication. The challenges are making sure that everybody understands the role of what we do, know the limitations of what we do, and know, as I said earlier, that the home inspection is I get this wrong every time, is a shield, not a sword. That we're not there to help them, I use the term a lot, work
Well,
over the seller.
That being said, it has been said by some in the industry that home inspectors are deal killers.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that statement, Jamie?
I'll let Kristin jump in. Kristin has a great explanation on this.
I get very passionate about this question. Here's the thing, our mission is to help our clients and partners make good decisions, make educated decisions. We are there to detect and not diagnose, and this is where the communication comes in to play. You can say, an inspector can say, oh, your HVAC system is shot, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to fix it. Or the inspector can say, your HVAC is nearing the end of its useful life, you're gonna wanna budget for replacement. See the difference?
yeah.
There's alarmist language and there's normal language.
But it's still working. And
If it's still
so
working.
If it is working functionally, but it's at the end of it, if it's like the life expectancy was 25 years and it's a 22-year-old unit,
The
budget
furnace in
for
my
it.
house is 24 years old. The guy was just there. We have it checked every 6 months. It's working fine.
That's older than your kids.
It is older than my kids. That's right, because I'm so young. So the thing is, do inspectors kill deals, or is there a failure to set the expectation? And I think that there are agents who don't want to work with us, and that's okay. But here's the thing, do you want to be an agent who is protecting your client and getting them all the information that you need? Or do you want to be an agent that's closing the deal?
right,
You know, that first option is going to bring you repeat business.
for sure.
I will say there are home inspectors. I am very involved in the home inspection community, both in the Chicago area and nationally. There are home inspectors that get a kick out of doing it. It's a power trip. They love killing deals, love sticking it to the other guy, that kind of a thing. I think it would be incumbent on the agents, before you're going to refer somebody, to interview them. Find out. I can count on probably one hand the number of agents that I've actually had an interview with on the front end to find out what is our style, what are our service, all the other things we've talked about. But the question doesn't come up often enough about how are you going to handle the difficult situations. We've killed deals. It happens.
But for a good reason.
For a good reason.
Right.
And I hate to say that we've killed deals. Situations have killed deals. We're just the messenger in a lot of cases. So don't kill the messenger.
It's those darn carpenter ants.
It is.
Well, but you guys were an inspector on one of our, or he actually put offers on 3 different homes. First one, they ended up pulling out of it, and it had to do with mold in the attic. And he was really nervous about it, and your inspectors were great and walked him through it, and then we got experts out to, help him. But in the end of the day, he wasn't comfortable with it, and he's the buyer, and
Yep.
that's, you're paying for the inspector, so you get knowledge, right?
Right.
Right.
So now, let me ask you, are inspectors licensed?
Yeah, they are. We've been licensed now as a trade, as a profession in Illinois through the same Illinois Department of Professional and
IDFPR.
Financial and Professional Regulation
Yes.
through the Division of Real Estate since 2003. Our renewals are up in end of November 2004. So as we're taping this right now, in about a month. We are licensed. Anybody, this is interesting, anybody who is participating in the inspection who does 2 or more parts of the inspection must be licensed. So I kind of bristle at this. Roofing contractors, when you have a roof put on your house, not every guy, newsflash, not every guy on that roof is a licensed roofer.
Right.
When you hire a plumber to come out to your house, not everybody at that job is a licensed plumber. With a home inspection, everybody who is participating in that inspection, if it's 2 or more items, is a licensed home inspector. Yeah, so that's important.
That's really important, and that's across the board.
Across the board,
It's
statewide.
not just Dunsing, it's everybody.
Statewide.
And is this just in Illinois?
Yeah,
'Cause
I'm
you guys-
licensed
you're licensed in
I'm licensed in
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah, Wisconsin is the same thing. Anybody that participates in an inspection up there is going to be licensed as well. So Indiana, we don't go to Indiana. I think Indiana is licensed. I think at this point about 30 of the states are licensed. I would think that most people are required.
But for example, in California, you don't have to be licensed.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our
Imagine with the
listeners,
earthquakes and the.
yeah, so for our
And as strict as
listeners,
California is with
Yeah.
Right.
so many things, that's interesting.
but for our listeners, if they're living outside of the US, we're gonna have listeners from all over, would you say it's important to ask to find out if they are
Absolutely.
licensed, or find out if it's a requirement in their state?
It's all
Or
of the
their
above.
country.
And I can count again on one hand the number of times somebody has actually asked to see my license. This is all available online. I know where to go on the
Right.
IDFPR website and find out a license. But our company has to be licensed as an entity, and then each of the inspectors has to be licensed. And then we can talk about insurance and some of the other requirements that
Right.
home inspectors.
And the license number has to be on the report of the
Signature.
inspector.
Yeah, there's
Signature and
a
license number.
lot of little rules.
Interesting. See, I didn't even realize that.
So as far as sellers, we talked a lot about buyers. Would you recommend before a seller puts their house on the market to have an inspection so that they're aware of what's going on?
Yeah. A colleague of mine told me this, she was 30 years ago. So we're going to go in and do an inspection. I'll come back to that quote in a second. We're going to come in and do an inspection on a house that's either for sale or going to be put up for sale. It's really nice for a home seller to find out what the problems are with their house so that they can take care of those problems, do proper disclosure, that kind of stuff. I love this quote. Pre-sale is wholesale, post-sale is retail.
Oh, I love that.
Kind of weird. So
Okay.
put that in play. If you can get the inspection and find out the problems before you actually have a contractor it's for sale, you can go find the right contractor and get it done properly and get it done inexpensively. If you're under the gun after you have a contract, now you're paying retail. Now you're going to the first person that can get there,
Yeah.
and you may be, paying big bucks.
I think a great illustration of that is there's a few missing tiles on the roof. You get it fixed prior to putting it on the market versus sitting at a closing table. Hey, how often did those few missing tiles turn into a whole new roof?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true. Now,
Pre-sale is wholesale, post-sale is retail.
has there ever been a time, well, I'm sure there was, but where, let's say, you help the seller pre-sale do the inspection, then the buyer comes in and gets a different inspector, and there's a conflict?
Yeah, honestly, we do such a great job, we never hear about
Of
that.
course. That's why I'm like, did that ever happen? Probably not with you.
It has. We were talking about services. We do inspections on stucco, synthetic stucco. Drive It as a brand name. That comes up a lot. We are one of the few companies in Chicago that does that type of inspection, and we will have many instances where people go to buy the house. Now they have another inspector come in, and he or she will find something a little different. Usually the problems aren't huge. It's usually, your inspector didn't point out that window needs to be caulked, so maybe somebody needs to come in and do that. But I have to say, knock on wood, we haven't had too many problems with that over the years. Yeah.
And we found out in speaking with you before we came on air today that you also teach and certify other inspectors.
Yeah. I am a licensed continuing education instructor for Illinois. Am I getting that right? Yeah. So
It's a mouthful.
It is, yeah. So Illinois is kind of interesting. I have to be a licensed instructor. Every one of the classes that I have to put through has to be a licensed class. So I have to develop the class, send it into IDFPR, they approve it, and we go from there. And then I have to renew that license individually and per class every 2 years. Illinois wants to get their piece of the action. But yeah, I do those. I've got an upcoming class coming up because renewals are coming up. And we'll probably have hundreds of people at the class. So we try to do really good technical and business stuff. I've been to some continuing education classes that were just kind of slapdash. It was just, you're fulfilling your obligation to get 12 hours of continuing ed. We're trying to do some legit classes where people can learn.
Yeah, and we do the same thing because we have to do CE as realtors. And you can go and online and do it all online, 2 days before the due date every 2 years.
Yep.
But what we try to do is add an extra certification or something, and that's extra CE hours for us that go toward that at the end of the year.
Yep.
But we're constantly trying to learn more about the industry and how can we better serve our clients, right?
I've been actively trying to elevate our industry for so long. I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but a lot of the guys are coming out of whatever the business is, and they just think this is an easy way to make a buck. And they don't realize the seriousness of the business, the liability that they're taking on. So we're constantly trying to elevate people, both on a technical and business. Run a business. We're not in business to just kind of go along and do things. There should be a profit. You should be getting paid appropriately.
Sure.
So,
but you are advising people on, for most people, the largest purchase they'll ever make in their lives.
Yep.
For the average American.
Yep.
So that's a responsibility that you want to take to heart when you walk into what might be their new home.
Absolutely. Yep.
One of the things I always say when I go to networking and I'm doing those elevator speeches is buying and selling real estate is a very emotional process. And it's important that you surround yourself by unbiased resources, unbiased professionals who can help you, who are professionals that can partner with other professionals. So realtors like yourself, lenders, attorneys, all the people, title people, all the people that will give you honest assessment of what's going on and guide you through the process.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's why you're the communications director.
You said it
Said
perfectly.
it so eloquently.
Liberal arts degree comes in handy sometimes.
Who knew?
Well, we're so glad that you guys joined us today, and we got to spend a little extra time with you, not
Yes.
inspecting a home.
And we'll attach all your contact information. If anybody wants to reach out, they will be in our show notes. So they will be able to get a hold of you.
Absolutely.
You can always go to dunsing.com.
Love it.
There you go. And we, of course, would love for you to subscribe and come back next week for another episode of Help Nobody Told Me.